meditation, I'll continue talking about how to work with disturbing emotions, which we started some time ago, and we're kind of continuing week after week with more material. And so are any of you new to meditation? Haven't done meditation before? We've all had experience. Okay. So what we will do tonight is basically the same as last week. We'll start with a body scan, going through the body to do the best we can to release any tension that we may have, because it's very helpful when we do meditation to be as relaxed as possible, not be tense and tight. So it's important to be able to let go of tension. And the body scan also helps to bring our awareness inside of us, inside of our body, and therefore more aware of our own mind. Because so much of the time, our attention is going outside of ourselves. We're going out there to the world around us, paying attention to people and noises and activities and so on and so forth. So we're often very busy during the day with the external world, and we don't have that much opportunity to be aware of our internal world, what's going on inside of us. And this can sometimes lead to problems, because if something is going on inside of us that's not healthy or not positive, then and we don't deal with that, it can lead to other kinds of problems. So it's important to be aware of what's happening inside of us. And that's also when we meditate. This is the main focus of our awareness, is the internal world, what's happening inside. So doing the body scan helps to bring our awareness away from the external world, what's going on outside of us, and bring it more into the internal world, what's going on inside of us. Okay, so make yourselves comfortable. Try to sit with a straight back, because that can help your mind be more focused and clear. And then another thing in the Tibetan tradition, or at least in the tradition that I've been following, they say that when we meditate, we want to be able to stay awake and alert and not fall asleep. And that can be a little challenging at this time of the day, if you had a busy day and you may be tired. And it's also warm. The heat tends to make us sleepy. And then if you just had dinner, then that's another factor that can contribute to sleepiness. So if you think that you might become sleepy during the meditation, a way to counteract that is to not close your eyes completely, but leave them open a little bit, just enough to allow light to come into your eyes. And doing that can help you stay awake. And just have your eyes focused downwards onto your lap or onto the floor in front of you. Okay, so now put your awareness at the top of your head. In other words, feel the top of your head. If you notice any tension at that place, see if you can let it go, let it flow away. And then move your awareness down into your forehead. You might have tension there. Sometimes we have worry lines our forehead is wrinkled with worry. And if that is the case, see if you can let go of the worry lines, the worry wrinkles, and let your forehead be smooth and relaxed. And next, feel your eyes and relax the muscles around your eyes and behind your eyes. But still, if you can, try to keep your eyes open a little bit. Then feel the other muscles in your face, facial muscles. And if you notice any tension in your face, see if you can let go of that. Let go of the tension. So let all the muscles in your face be relaxed. But you might like to do as advised by Thich Nhat Hanh when we meditate, to smile a little bit. It's not obligatory, but you might find that it helps you to feel more peaceful and relaxed. And now move your awareness around to the right side of your head. Relax or let go of any tension you may have there. And then do the same with the back of your head. And then move your awareness around to the left side of your head. Feel the sensations there. Release any tension. And now go inside of your head. See if you can feel sensations inside your head. And again, if you notice tension inside of your head, see if you can let it go. You can imagine that it melts and flows away, flows out of your body, sinks into the earth beneath us. Now move your awareness down into your neck and throat. We sometimes have tension in our neck, especially the back of the neck. So if there is any tension, see if you can let it go. Let it flow out of you and disappear. Now move your awareness down into the upper part of your back. Another place where we sometimes have tension. So feel both sides, the left, the right. And again, if there's tension, see if you can just let it go. Imagine that it melts and flows down and sinks into the earth beneath us. And let the awareness continue to move down through your back, the middle part of your back. And again, do the same. See if you can let go of any tension there. And then the lower part of your back. And then move your awareness now to the front part of your body, starting with your chest. And again, let go of any tension you may notice there. And let the awareness continue to move down through the front part of your body, the trunk of your body. There's where we have a lot of organs, internal organs, the heart, the lungs, the stomach, the liver, and so forth. And a lot of muscles in those areas. And again, sometimes there's tension. You may feel knots of tension, especially in the abdomen. And if you notice any tension in that area, see if you can let it go. Release it. Imagine that it flows down and out of you, flowing down into the earth beneath us. And now let your awareness move down into your right hip, right buttock. Let go of any tension in that area. And then let the awareness move down into the right leg, starting with the upper part of your leg. Relax the muscles there. Let go of any tension. And then the right knee. And the right calf, the lower part of the leg. And then your right ankle and the foot, all the way down to the toes. And now shift your awareness to the left side, starting with the left hip and buttock. See if you can let go of any tension in that area. Then continue to move down into the left leg, starting with the upper part of the leg, the thigh. Then the left knee, the left calf, the lower part of the leg. And then the ankle and the foot, all the way down to the toes. So now we have the arms. So start with the right arm. Start at the top of the right arm, just below the shoulder. And let your awareness move down into the upper part of the arm, relaxing, releasing any tension. And then the elbow. Then the lower part of the arm. And then the wrist, hand, and fingers. And then do the same with the left arm. Start at the upper part, below the shoulder. And first, feel and relax the upper part of the arm. And then the elbow. And the lower part of the arm. Wrist, hand, and fingers. So we've gone through our body, all the main parts of the body, and tried our best to relax any tension. So even if there's still some tension that you weren't able to let go of, that's okay. Just feel that you did the best you could. And try to remain free of tension for the rest of the meditation session. And now place your awareness on your breathing. Just allow the breath to flow in and out in a natural rhythm. That means don't control your breathing, don't manipulate your breathing. There's no need to do that because your body knows how to breathe on its own. It doesn't need to be controlled or regulated. But just let go of the wish to control and just let the body breathe as it normally does. Sometimes the breath may be a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, and that's okay. Your body knows how much air it needs to take in. Just allow it to happen. And just with your mind, your awareness, be aware of the flow of the breath in and out. One breath after another. So by doing this, by paying attention to the breath flowing in and out, we are keeping our awareness in the present moment, right here, right now. And that gives us a break, a holiday from our usual activity. Most of the time we're busy doing things. And even if we're not doing things physically, we tend to do things mentally. We think a lot. We go over past experiences, thinking about them, going over them again and again. Or we think about future events, making plans or fantasizing. Again, over and over again, thinking the same thoughts. Sometimes we need to do that. We need to think about the past or the future. But sometimes it's good to give ourselves a break from that. Just put aside those thoughts of the past and of the future and just be in the present moment. Just being aware of our breath coming in and going out. So it's natural that as you try to do this, there will be thoughts. Thoughts will come up in your mind. That's normal. And don't try to stop them, but also try not to get caught up in them, thinking the thoughts, getting involved in them. Instead, try to just let them come and let them go. You can think of them as being like clouds that come and go in the sky, or waves that rise and fall on the surface of the ocean. So just let the thoughts come and go. And other experiences as well, like sounds. The sounds of people's voices, or dog barking, or car honking. So whatever sound there is, it's something impermanent, transitory. It comes, it goes. So just be aware of thoughts, sounds, and other experiences coming, and let them go. Try not to get caught up in them. Try not to react to them with liking or disliking, grasping or rejecting. Just be aware of them coming and going. And while doing this meditation, try to keep your mind in a state that is friendly, kind, open, kind towards yourself, kind towards others, not being angry or hateful towards anybody, not being critical or judgmental towards anybody. Just kind and open, accepting. And try to have the same attitude towards whatever arises in your mind or in your experience, thoughts, sounds, feelings in your body, and so forth. Just try to be open and accepting, not judgmental or critical, liking or disliking. So let's continue to practice like this for about another 10 minutes. So remember to bring your awareness, your attention back to the breath. Whenever you notice it has wandered away, got caught up thinking something or reacting to sound or whatever, anything other than the breath, just let go of that other thought or experience, put it aside, and just come back to being aware of the breath flowing in and flowing out. Okay. Anybody feel sleepy? Do you know what to do about sleepiness? Huh? Go to sleep. Yes, if that's what you want to do, you can. But if you don't want to, if you want to stay awake, then a few things you can do are to just try to sit up straight, and again, have the eyes open, and you can even open them quite wide. This is what I do sometimes when I'm struggling with sleepiness. I have them really wide open, and then just looking at some spot in front of me, trying not to look around. And that can help sometimes, just keeping the eyes open. And make sure there's some fresh air. If it's too warm and stuffy in the room, that makes it easy to fall asleep. So have some fresh air coming in. And then in this tradition, the Tibetan tradition, they also recommend a kind of visualization that you can do to counteract sleepiness, to imagine light. Think of light. So you could think of some really bright light, or the sun, or bright moon, and just imagine yourself, especially your head, I think, filled with this bright light. Because if you think about it, when the light is on, when we turn the light on in the morning, that kind of wakes us up. It's hard to sleep with the light on. So visualizing light, imagining light can help to wake up the mind. And also they say in general, just make sure you're getting enough sleep at night, because if you're not, if you're sleep deprived, then every time you sit down and meditate, the sleep will catch up with you. So make sure you're getting enough rest, enough sleep at the right time when you're supposed to be sleeping. Also, I find that it's something that passes. It isn't like it gets worse and worse and worse, and eventually you just have to go to sleep. But it's like a temporary thing, a transitory thing. It comes and it goes. So if you just try to fight it and resist it and stay awake, then after some time it goes away. That's my experience, but you can try other things as well. Find what works. Yeah.
Do you have anything for the opposite? Good ways of meditating for falling asleep?
How to fall asleep?
If you have sleep problems.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one. I learned this from another teacher, meditation teacher, and that is to just focus on the present moment, like we were doing just now. Because often what happens, we lie down and go to sleep and we start thinking about things, thinking about things that happened during the day, or thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow. So the thoughts, it's mental activity, it keeps you awake. So if you try to just not think about anything and just pay attention to or be aware of whatever's happening in the present moment. It could be your breath coming in and out. It could be sensations in your body. It could be sounds that you hear. But just stay in the present moment with whatever's happening in the present moment. And I don't know, when I try that, it usually works. Before I know it, I'm gone. I'm out. Yeah, so try that. Anyone else? Any other questions?
I have comments.
Yep.
On the sleeping thing, that
One of the yoga teachers told me you could do the bubble beat, which is you put your fingers in your ears and then you hum. Sounds like a bubble bee inside. Close your eyes. If you do this for 10 minutes, the sound makes you relax. It's a yoga technique.
Okay. It's also a meditation. I've learned it with
Okay, like
humming. Yeah, I used to use earplugs, but like just the humming seems also exist about like Buddhist monks humming and down the sounds of that. It's really humming, but it's different to do it as
Yeah, another thing too is sometimes the problem is noise, if there's a lot of noise in the environment. And there's this, it exists in America. I don't know if here people know about it, but they call it white noise. Have you heard of white noise? Yeah, it's kind of noise that's just very, very steady, like the sound of a fan, you know. And you can actually get apps for your phone or your iPad or whatever. And so these apps, and you can set the time if you want 1 hour, 2 hours, or 8 hours, or whatever, you know. And then this noise will just keep going. So that's another thing that can help, because it's like a very, I guess it's similar to the sound of the humming. It's like a very steady, calming kind of noise. And then even if there's noise in the environment, I don't know if it's a rock band playing right outside your window, that might be a bit hard, but voices, for example, or dogs barking, then your mind is kind of focusing on the sound of this white noise, and the other noise sort of fades into the background. So apparently a lot of people use this, especially living in places like New York City, where there's a lot of traffic noise and other kinds of noise 24 hours. So they have these tools to play white noise. So it's another option to try. So let's have a break now. And then after the break, I'm going to continue talking about what I started last week, which was attachment. And we'll actually begin with a meditation on impermanence, which is one helpful method to use with attachment. So we'll do another meditation after the break, guided meditation.
Can I say something?
Uh-huh.
It's just we bought these meditation tables, and if anyone wants to support our center and give a contribution, either by mobile pay or cash, you just come to me and I'll tell you how you can do it. It's a great opportunity to help our center because it's really nice with the table.
A place to put your book.
Yeah. What else?
Yeah, I mean, in this class, we don't usually use books, but in some classes, you may have books or prayer books or whatever. You want to write on something. Okay, so let's have 10 minutes, 15 minutes break. I'll ring the gong when it's time to come back. And if you're new here, upstairs, there's some refreshments, I think. Hmm? You didn't do it? Okay. mind: anger, attachment, and ignorance. So there's others as well, other states of mind as well that are problematic, but those are said to be the main ones. The main causes of problems and suffering, both for ourselves, just in our own personal life and experiences. They cause problems, and they can also cause problems in the world, in society, and so forth. So, it's easier. Usually, it's easier to see the problems that come from attachment and anger, hatred. That kind of family of emotions, which can also include violence, aggression. So it's not too difficult to see how that leads to problems, but it's not as obvious with attachment, with desire, how that can lead to problems. So I spoke about some that the Buddha himself mentioned, for example, how it doesn't really lead to happiness and satisfaction, but leads to more dissatisfaction. He said it's like drinking salt water. So if you're thirsty and you drink salt water, it doesn't really quench your thirst. It just makes you more thirsty. So he said it's the same with desire. If we have desire, wanting, craving, that state of mind, if we keep following that all the time, then what happens is we don't really get satisfied, but we just want more and more and more. So that's just a natural state of affairs. And it seems that manufacturing companies, I don't know if that's the right word, but businesses and so forth, they seem to understand that very well. They know how human beings work. And so it's kind of obvious, they make a new model of things all the time. So you have a computer or an iPad or a certain type of car or phone or whatever. And so you buy the newest version, but within 6 months or a year or whatever, there's a newer one, a better one, a fancier looking, that can do more things and so forth. And so then, the one that you had, the one that you bought 6 months ago or 1 year ago, now it doesn't look so good anymore. And you want the new one, the better one. So, and I think also advertising, whoever produces advertisements, advertising companies, they also understand very well how human mind works, how to create desire in our minds for the products that are being sold. So again, the Buddha mentioned these things, but we need to investigate it for ourselves in our experience, and also in the experience we can see around us, friends and family, and also in the world around us. And I was thinking today of one Buddhist teacher used as an example of how desire leads to dissatisfaction. The story of Anna Karenina. Have you read that? I didn't actually read it myself, but apparently the heroine, the leading character of this story, Anna Karenina, was this very beautiful and noble woman. She was a princess, actually. She was married, but then she had a lover, and the lover managed to convince her to leave her husband and go off with him. So the two of them went off and were living somewhere. And so he got the lover, managed to get the woman of his dreams, of his desire. He got the woman that he desired. But then when he was actually living with her, apparently he became dissatisfied. He started getting bored. And is that right? Is that how the story goes? You don't know? I thought some of you read it. Anyway, he found himself feeling bored with her and dissatisfied and finding faults and so on. And then that led to all kinds of problems in the relationship. So So there's lots of this kind of theme, I think, in literature and movies and songs and so forth, of having this strong desire for some object, which could be a person, but it could also be some material object. And then even if you manage to get it, not being satisfied. I remember some time ago reading an article in a newspaper about how scientists were going to do research into why it is that, say, a person wants to have, say, a BMW, a nice car like a BMW, and then they manage to get this car that they want, but even after getting it, they're not really happy. So I thought, well, that's interesting. The scientists are noticing that, and they're looking into that. The Buddha talked about that thousands of years ago. So one reason this is so is because of the impermanent nature of things, the things that we get attached to, whether they're people or inanimate things or whatever it is that we get attached to. It's something impermanent. It's something that doesn't last. It's changing all the time. And when we have attachment for an object, then part of attachment is wanting the object to be permanent, to be unchanging, to be always the same and not changing and always there, like it will never go away. This is what we want, what we wish for when we have attachment. But that attitude just goes against reality, because things aren't like that. Things don't stay the same. They're actually changing every single moment, every second, every nanosecond, changes are taking place. And usually in the direction of getting older, right? So people get older, computers get older, cars get older. They don't get younger and newer and better. They get older. And so you buy some beautiful new object, but inevitably, it's going to start getting scratches on it and breaking down and just not looking so beautiful as it did when it was brand new. And the same with people. Yeah. No matter how many products you use, there's all kinds of products to sort of hide the signs of age. But, you can only do that so long. Eventually, it's going to pop through the signs of age. So, so one way that we can work on decreasing attachment is by learning to simply accept and be comfortable with the reality of impermanence, the fact that things are impermanent. They are changing all the time. We can't stop that from happening. It's just the nature of things. It's a scientific reality. It's not just a philosophical idea or a spiritual idea that the Buddha talked about, but it's reality. It's the way things are. We know from physics, from science, that, material things are made of little molecules and atoms, tiny particles, and they're moving all the time, changing all the time. That's just the reality of things. They don't stay the same. They're changing all the time. So we tend to have resistance to this. We tend to not want to see this, to accept this. But by not accepting impermanence, then this kind of fuels or feeds our desires and our attachments. And so becoming more aware of, more accepting of, more comfortable with impermanence can help to reduce our attachments, because then we just know, the things we're attached to aren't going to be there forever. They're going to change, and one day we will separate from them. We won't be able to have them with us forever and ever. So it takes a while to get used to that idea, get comfortable with that idea, but once one can, then it really helps one to be more comfortable with the reality of things and less kind of grasping and, wanting things. Also, another thing that's impermanent is our state of mind. So, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, they are also impermanent. They come and go. So that explains why one day you might be happy with a particular object of attachment, but the next day not. You're not happy with it. You're dissatisfied with it. That's also just the nature of things, that our mind is changing every single, not just from one day to the next, but from every moment. From one moment to the next, our mind is changing. So at certain moments there's happiness, and other moments there's unhappiness, and moments there's love, and other moments there's anger. So it's just the nature of our mind that it's changing all the time. So anyway, I thought instead of just talking about this, we could do a meditation on it to get more familiar with impermanence, what it is. And as the Buddha said, it's very, very important to meditate on impermanence. It's one of the most important, one of the greatest meditations that there is. So this would be a guided meditation. I'll be talking more than usual as we go along. So just try the best you can to stay focused and not fall asleep, and try to stay awake, and also try to stay concentrated on what we're supposed to be meditating on, rather than thinking about other things, letting your mind wander away. So if you do notice your mind has wandered away and you're thinking about what you're going to do later tonight, or what you're going to do tomorrow, or something that happened in the past, so something that's not related to the meditation, as soon as you notice that, put it aside, let it go, and come back to the meditation. Okay, so start as before, trying to sit with a straight back, but at the same time be relaxed. And if you want to avoid sleepiness and stay awake during the meditation, then it could be helpful to keep your eyes open a little bit. So just let your awareness settle down in the present moment. You can be aware of your breath flowing in and out. So that's a good way to just be in the present moment, because our breathing is happening in the present. So the meaning of impermanence is change. It means that things are changing. And the rate of change is pretty fast. It's from one moment to the next. Even if we divide a moment into many parts, even within one of those parts, there's change that takes place. So things are changing constantly all the time. They don't stay the same from one moment to the next. So let's first try to understand this with regard to our own body, our physical body. So we are not able to actually see the little particles that make up our body, but we know they're there. Otherwise, our body wouldn't be here. So think about the more gross parts of the body, the parts that we can see, like our arms and legs and head and the trunk of our body. And the surface of our body is covered with skin. And we know that inside, under the skin, there's lots of other things. There's the flesh, bones, blood vessels, different organs like our heart and stomach, our brain, and so forth. There's many, many parts of our body, physical, material things. And these parts are in turn made up of smaller parts, such as cells. So we probably have billions or trillions of cells that make up our body. Those are so small we can't actually see them with our eye. We can only see them with a microscope. The cells themselves are made up of parts. So they can be broken down into smaller parts. And then we get down to molecules, atoms, subatomic particles. And the scientists continue to break down little particles of matter and haven't really found a basic building block, basic particle that's the building block for everything else. So get down to that very, very fine level of our body, and there's actually a lot of space with little teeny particles flying around very fast and moving all the time. Sometimes waves, sometimes particles, changing all the time. So just contemplate this. And this is not something we can see with our eyes, but we can understand it with our mind, with our concepts. So just contemplate and try to get a sense of how your body is made up of all these parts down to the very, very subtle particles, and that there's constant change and movement taking place each moment. So your body doesn't stay the same from one moment to the next, but it's always changing. And then contemplate how as our body is changing, it's getting older, not younger. So This isn't an idea that gives us joy, but it's the reality. So, isn't it better to accept the reality that our body isn't going to be the way it is forever, but it's going to get older and older, year by year, day by day, moment by moment. Then at some point, due to causes and conditions such as illness or age or some kind of accident, then our body will stop working altogether. In other words, we will die. This is also something we don't really like to think about, but it's again reality. We're not going to live forever. Nobody lives forever. So is it not better to gradually come to accept that reality, that truth, and learn to be comfortable with it? So given that our body is impermanent, it's changing all the time, it's getting older, and eventually it will stop existing. We will die. So does it make sense to be attached to our body and have a sense of identifying with our body, thinking, oh, this is me, this is who I am? And we might think it makes more sense to identify with our mind, our consciousness. But that too is impermanent. It's changing moment by moment, not in the same way as the body, because the mind is not a physical thing. It's not made of cells, molecules, atoms, and so on. It doesn't have any physical properties at all. It's totally non-physical, non-material. It's just the energy of knowing, of experiencing, of awareness. And it's always there, it's always experiencing something. But it's impermanent in the sense that it's changing every moment. It's not the same one moment to the next. So each moment we have different experiences, such as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling sensations with our body. We have thoughts, we have emotions. So just spend a few minutes being aware of your mind, of your experiences, and try to notice how there's change taking place all the time. now just ask yourself if there's anything that's within you, anything that's part of you that isn't impermanent. In other words, anything that's permanent, unchanging, that stays the same and doesn't change at all. So just as we looked at impermanence with our body and mind, the things that make us up, the things outside of us are also impermanent. So around us in the world, there are many physical things like the earth itself, and then all the mountains and oceans, trees and plants, buildings and other things made by human beings and the human beings themselves. So all of these things out there around us are also impermanent, changing moment by moment. Now, to get a sense of how impermanence can help us deal with attachment, bring to mind a kind of food that you like to eat. Could be a piece of cake or pie or pizza or whatever is your favorite type of food. Just imagine, visualize that type of food sitting there on a plate in front of you. So when it's fresh, it's been newly made, and it looks really, really nice, really delicious. But it's impermanent. It's changing moment by moment. So imagine that instead of eating it, you just leave it sitting there on the plate. And imagine how it will look after 1 hour. Then how will it look after 5 hours? How will it look after 1 day? How will it look after 2 days? How about 1 week? So does this object still appear so attractive and appealing and desirable? Do you still have a strong sense of attachment to it? So what do you think? Do you think that that kind of contemplation could be helpful for working with attachment?
I'm really puzzled about using the food that actually goes bad. because because that means we should not see the beauty. Like, it's difficult to see the beauty of change there. Whereas if you want to make that same one person that you love and want to stay together, want to be happy about the way the person changes.
Yeah. So you're asking, would it be appropriate to use this kind of contemplation with a person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also with things. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many things that grow nicer when they change. A lot of things are not really nice when they're new. So
Yeah.
if we wanted to, like, part of my philosophy is also that we should hold on to things for a longer time, and I like the way that they're changing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
And then food is maybe one of the only things that we should not hold on to when they go.
No, good for you. Yeah. Well, yeah, it is a kind of tricky question. And in fact, in the traditional teachings, the Buddhist teachings, it is said that if you want to overcome attachment, if you have attachment for a person, an object, or whatever, the recommended meditation to do is what is called meditation on, you say, like, unattractiveness. And so that means you actually look at something more carefully, like what it's actually made of. So like a body, for example, if you look very carefully at what the body's made of and you think about what's inside of it and so on, you actually see it's not really that attractive. And with food and with other things as well, you look really, really carefully at what is actually there. And when you do that, then it becomes actually hard to see something that's really, really attractive, at least in a long-term, permanent way. So this is used, for example, in Buddhism, there's this tradition of people becoming ordained, people becoming monks and nuns, and that's a way of life that some people choose in order to practice. And attachment is one of the biggest difficulties to live this kind of life. So monastic people are recommended to do this kind of meditation when they find themselves feeling attracted, feeling desire, like wanting to run back to their boyfriend or girlfriend, or live in a nice place and eat nice food and so on. So they're advised to do this kind of meditation to help them just see, what it is that they are attracted to, and is it really worth being attracted to?
Can you imagine the person dying then, or?
They do, yeah. And not just imagine. In India, in ancient times, I don't know if this is still the case, but in ancient times, cemeteries were places where bodies were just put out on the open. They weren't put in a nice box and buried and so on. They were just left on this big open space. And meditators would, if they really wanted to overcome their attachment, they would go and meditate in these places and just look at the corpses as they're decomposing and so on. And so apparently that's a very powerful meditation practice. And I heard in Thailand, people who die will sometimes donate their body to a monastery. And I've seen photos of this, like they'll have this glass case and inside is a body and it's slowly decomposing. I mean, it sounds horrible, but the point is, it really helps you cut down attachment. But you have to understand the context of this. What is the reason? What is the purpose of this? And it's because the goal in Buddhism is the long-term goal, the highest goal is the attainment of liberation, nirvana, which is a state of mind that's beyond attachment, beyond all the disturbing emotions. And attachment is one of the things that prevents us from attaining nirvana. If we're kind of attached to this world and our bodies and the bodies of others and all the delicious things that we have in this world, that makes it really hard to get free of it. I like to think of it as like a bird. A bird has the ability to fly. But if the bird is holding on to a branch with its feet, it's clinging to this branch, and then it tries to flap its wings and fly away, it's not going to work. So in a similar way, we have the ability, the potential for our mind to fly away, escape from this ordinary world where there's so much suffering. But if we're still clinging and attached to the things of this world, that will prevent us from being able to fly away. So it depends on how strongly you really want to go there to attain those higher states of mind. And if you you also have to study and understand what is nirvana, what does it mean to attain nirvana, and why do we attain nirvana, and so forth. So you need to do this on the basis of learning and contemplating. But people who do reach the point where they feel that's definitely what I want to do, I want to attain nirvana, then that's the point at which you would really dedicate yourself to this kind of practice and, overcome all your desires and attachments. So it needs to be done with the right understanding. Does that make sense? And with regard to your question as well. So I remember once I was teaching a group of people about one text that was talking about this kind of meditation, and one young woman in the audience, she said, well, my fiance and I are planning to get married soon. So, is it appropriate for me to do this kind of meditation with you? Yeah, we do have to, determine what our lifestyle is. What is it that we want to do in our life? And if we're not, we feel we're not at the point where we really want to, overcome all of our attachment. We still want to, enjoy things here. Then that kind of meditation may not be appropriate. But however, it could be useful if you do get married to your fiance and you're having a very nice relationship, but then you meet somebody else, you find, oh, wow, that person looks really attractive. So then that kind of attachment would endanger your relationship with your partner. Yeah. So if you don't want that to happen, then it might be appropriate in that situation to use this kind of meditation. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you have to determine for yourself, what's appropriate for you, and do that. So
I have a question about how compassion comes into this idea of nirvana and letting go of everything, like the bird that is free only just flies for its own sake. It needs to be able to fly. And I'm just curious because I'm really new to this.
Yeah, well, there are two sort of paths within Buddhism. One is the attainment of nirvana, where one feels, I just want to get out of suffering. I want to get myself out of suffering and I want to attain nirvana. And so you're mainly thinking about yourself. That doesn't mean you don't have compassion and love for others, because you would also think, well, as long as I'm, in this world and I still have my delusions, then I'm going to be causing problems to other people as well. And I don't want that to happen. So if I can get myself out of this situation and to nirvana, then I won't be harming others anymore. So it's not that you're totally without compassion, but your main goal is helping yourself. Then the other path is the bodhisattva path. And that path also sees the need to free oneself from ignorance, attachment, anger, and so forth, and attain a higher state of mind, not nirvana, but enlightenment, Buddhahood, which is a somewhat higher state. And your reason for doing that is not just to free yourself, but so that you can help others. So your real goal is to stay in the world and work for others and help others, help them to be free of suffering and these three poisonous states of mind. But you know that to be able to help others do it, you have to do it yourself. So you're still working on your mind and freeing yourself from attachment and so forth, but with the goal of staying in the world and helping others to do the same. So there are these two approaches in Buddhism, which are for different types of people. So for some people, getting themselves out, that's the appropriate path for them. For others, the path of working for others is more appealing. But either way, you still need to have compassion. Your goal is always compassion. You don't want to harm others. You want to avoid harming others as much as possible and help others as much as possible. But you just see different ways of doing that. Does that help? Yeah.
There's a thought I've been having for a while now, is that when you say that the attachment is what's blocking our, natural compassion for other people, but that's what I've been calling it actually. Our attachment to ourselves and our things and our ideas and our thoughts and our concepts of who we are is what is holding us back from being naturally compassionate and naturally in the world out there.
So you're asking, I'm just repeating the question for people. I sometimes forget to do this, people who are watching online. Is attachment to oneself and one's things and identity and so forth, is that holding us back from compassion for others?
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking for.
Yeah, it does, yeah. I mean, it's one of the things. There are other things as well that interfere with compassion, but for sure, attachment. Because we're very much concerned about me and my comfort and my things and so on and so forth. And that will sometimes block us from really being there for others and helping others and so on. So a bodhisattva, on the bodhisattva path, this is the path for someone who wants to become enlightened and then help all living beings. The bodhisattva needs to completely give up attachment to their things and be willing to, I mean, it's hard to do, but they do it, be willing to give away everything to others. So even their body, the story about the Buddha giving his body to the hungry tiger, you know that story? Yeah, so that's really giving up attachment. But you have to be very strong and well developed in your practice to do that kind of thing. But in the meantime, they say we can work gradually, trying to become more and more generous and less attached to our things and so on. So for sure, attachment is a hindrance to compassion and a hindrance to enlightenment. So, yeah. And also, another way that compassion interferes, attachment interferes with compassion is like we probably find it easy to have compassion for some people, the people that we love and care about, my family, my friends, my children, and so on and so forth. So those I care about and I have compassion for and so on. But for others, for strangers, people we don't know, and especially for people we don't like, the so-called enemies, then we may not have compassion for them. So that shows that our compassion isn't really pure. Pure compassion would include everybody, all beings. Of course, it's hard to get to that point, but that's the ideal in Buddhism, is to be able to have compassion for everybody, all living beings, rather than just those who are important to me, those who are kind to me, those who help me, and so forth. So again, our compassion will sometimes be selective, based on our ego, based on our me, and what I want, and what's good for me, and so on. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, any other questions about attachment?
Yeah. I don't know if it's too big a question to bring up, but it's just that we did this with the impermanence, and there was nothing permanent. Was the idea of the exercise, but still the thing that is flying away, that must be permanent.
The thing that is flying away. What's the thing that's flying away? The one that becomes enlightened, you mean? The one that attains nirvana? Well, yeah, this is a tricky thing, because the term, we use these terms impermanent and permanent, right? And the way those terms are used in Buddhism is somewhat different than the way that they're used in the West, or in our Western culture, because the meaning in Buddhism of impermanent is changing moment by moment by moment by moment, always changing. And the meaning of permanent is not changing moment by moment by moment. That's the real meaning of permanent versus impermanent. Whereas in the West, we tend to think of something impermanent as short-term, short-lived. It won't last forever. Something permanent, lasting forever. It's going to be there forever and ever and ever. So that's the usual understanding of those terms. So in Buddhism, it's not quite the same, because, for example, our mind is an impermanent thing, because it's changing moment by moment by moment by moment, right? As we looked at in the meditation. So it's impermanent. But that doesn't mean our mind is impermanent in the Western sense, that it's going to die at some point. Because according to Buddhism, our mind will never die. It will go on forever, never, never, forever. So it's eternal. It's better to use the word eternal rather than permanent. It's eternal in the sense that it will always be there. But while it's there, it's changing moment by moment by moment. It's always changing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that flies away and attains nirvana or enlightenment is something that it will last forever. It won't cease at some point, but it's impermanent in the Buddhist sense, because it's changing every moment. So you have to kind of be flexible with the terminology and understand how these terms are used in Buddhism, and then not just stick to the Western understanding of these terms. It's okay? Okay, so then for working on attachment, meditating on impermanence can be helpful. So over time, the more we contemplate and get used to the idea of things being impermanent, then gradually that will help us to not be so attached to things and wanting them to be the same and not change and be there forever, because we'll realize it's just not the case. It's just not possible. And another thing that can be helpful, I'll just mention briefly, because with attachment, we want happiness. We want satisfaction. We want to feel good. And we're trying to get the happiness that we're looking for from things like food and, people and movies and so forth. But, as we looked at, these don't necessarily give us very long-lasting satisfaction and happiness. So one thing that can help to decrease in attachment is to find other sources of happiness that are more long-term and more satisfying. For example, the practice of meditation, spiritual practice. No, I mean, you try it for yourself, right? This is my experience. When you practice meditation, and this doesn't mean every time you meditate, but gradually over time, you learn to find happiness within yourself. You learn to be able to experience greater happiness, greater peace of mind, greater positive experiences than you get from eating ice cream and chocolate and, other kinds of things. It's a more stable, long-term, long-lasting kind of happiness. And the more you meditate, they say, I'm not there yet, but you can achieve higher and higher states of mind that are much more blissful and satisfying than anything that we normally experience with our ordinary objects of attachment. So they say there's higher and higher levels of happiness that can be attained through the practice of meditation. And when you achieve those higher kinds of happiness, better kinds of happiness, your attachments kind of gradually, just naturally fall away because you found something better. You found something better than food and sex and other things that you're normally attached to. That doesn't mean that you have to give away everything. You have to give away all your things and cut yourself off from friends and not enjoy life. It doesn't mean that. You can still enjoy all these things, but you do so without attachment, without the attitude of grasping and, trying to get as much pleasure from them as you can, because you won't be able to get that much pleasure from them. So spiritual practice then means meditation, but it also includes practicing loving kindness and compassion, being altruistic, helpful for others. That's another source of a more satisfying kind of happiness. And there's scientific proof of that as well. That doing things for others, helping others gives you much more happiness, and it's a more pure kind of happiness as well than just indulging your senses. I've heard that they identified two kinds of happiness in the West. One is hedonistic happiness. That's where you're just like, sense pleasures, just enjoying as much sensory pleasures as you can. And the other kind is called, I don't know how to say it properly, eudaimonic. Anyone heard that term before? Apparently it goes back to Aristotle. It's a Greek term. eudaemonic, eudaimonic. And that's a kind of happiness that has to do, it's more of a spiritual kind of happiness, or happiness that comes from having a deeper meaning of life rather than just, indulging your sense pleasures. So apparently scientists, I've heard they're doing experiments on these two different kinds of experiences that people have, and finding that they find some proof already that the eudaimonic kind of happiness is actually better for our body, better for our health than the hedonic happiness. Anyway, it's interesting that scientists are actually looking into this, because the same idea is there in Buddhism as well, that there are different levels of happiness, and the happiness that comes from just enjoying sensory pleasures is actually a relatively low level, low quality kind of happiness, and there are higher, more satisfying, more long-term kinds of happiness that we can achieve through meditation and cultivating love and compassion and so forth. So the more, what I'm trying to say here is, the more we try to cultivate that kind of happiness, then we will just naturally have less attachment, less kind of grasping for the sensory kind of pleasures and happiness. Anyway, so we've run out of time, so we'll stop there for tonight. And there's any questions left over, can bring them up next week. Let's just take a few minutes to make a dedication of what we have done here tonight. We came together and spent some time doing meditation, and then also learning about, thinking about, talking about the teachings that the Buddha gave on how to transform our mind and bring about a more positive and pure state of mind, and work on decreasing our disturbing emotions. So this has been a good thing to do, something helpful for ourselves, something helpful for others, for the world. So let's mentally share the positive energy that we've created here tonight with others, wishing that it will bring happiness and peace, freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering, ignorance and attachment and hatred and other disturbing states of mind. So may it help all of us have less of the causes of suffering, less suffering, and greater peace and happiness, up to the highest happiness of enlightenment. Okay, thank you. Right.